We have two buyers right now that are pre-approved and looking. They are not using a buyer's agent because they signed something on the listing side when they went to view a property that they did not understand. So now they don't trust anyone.
Hi, and welcome to the Loan Officer Team Training Podcast. My name is Irene Duford. I'm your host, and I'm really excited to have my friend Alyson Rixner here with us today. Welcome, Alyson. I'm so glad you're with us.
Thank you for having me, Irene. I appreciate it. It's good to be back.
Yes, and back is the word because you've been on several podcasts, and I'm so excited to have you here today because a couple weeks ago, as we were talking on the phone, we were talking about how important this NAR settlement is, how important it's affecting agents, it's affecting business, it's affecting mortgage loan officers, it's affecting buyers, seller, everything, right? It's
Everyone's affected. Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
So I thought we'd get on here. We both decided it would be a good topic for this podcast to talk a little bit about that and a little bit about how it affects mortgage originators as well. So I kind of wanted to start out today talking about, because I'm a process person, because of our training company that we create trainings for, loan partners, support staff, some newer loan officers, things like that. I wanted to make sure that we ask the right questions, that we're telling loan officers and putting it in our training as well, how to navigate through this. And my biggest concern is, of course, how we're going to help our referral partners through it too, right? The agents. And we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me, because I'm process oriented, is what questions now do we need to ask that we didn't have to used to ask? How's that for English? We didn't used to have to ask.
I understood what you meant.
We didn't used to have to ask these questions, but now we may have to be thinking about some questions to ask when the contract comes in. Have they signed an agreement? If they have, what are they paying? Does that money need to be sourced? I'm not originating anymore, so I'm not in the everyday, but I do have Kenny on our team that is originating, and he has to ask a lot of those questions. So let's start there, if you don't mind. You're in it every day. You see what's going on.
Yeah, it's big changes. And I think even myself, I was a little naive to think like, oh, this isn't going to be as confusing as I think it is 6 months ago. Well, guess what? It has been, right? What we have to understand is that we're all, to a certain extent, self-employed people running our own businesses, right?
Yeah.
And so mortgage LOs are working for a broker or a lender, right? But you're still running your own business. Realtors are working for their broker. So we have been leaning on, if that's the right word, our kind of companies that live up here to help us. And I have seen, especially on the realtor side, a very poor showing of training and understanding of what's going on. So that is why the partnership piece matters. And I think, to answer your question from a process standpoint, it was always the, seller was going to pay for the buyers and the commission of their listing agent.
Yes.
It was a norm, let's call it. It wasn't a law, but this is just what happened. Now, all of a sudden, there has to be an agreement, which we know. So that's called the buyer broker agreement or exclusive buyer broker agreement, which is going to tell the buyer and the buyer's agent that this is what we've agreed to, both from how we're going to work together and also how we're going to pay you, right? How are you going to be paid? And what is the commission that you're asking for? So now in my company, we are asking for those buyer broker agreements. Sometimes we need them. We're brokers, right? So sometimes a lender wants them, sometimes they don't. But to us, we need to understand what they've agreed to pay.
Yes.
Because let's give an example. So somebody goes under contract and in their buyer broker agreement, it says 3% commission, which was standard, right? So the buyer is saying, I acknowledge that you will be making 3%. The buyer's not saying they're definitely going to pay for that, right? Because again, it's the norm that the seller pays for it.
Mhm.
But let's just say that buyer's agent goes to that listing agent and says, I want 3%. And the listing agent says, no, I'm only going to give you 2.5%. Well, now they either need to get another buyer broker agreement signed, or that buyer needs to come up with that 0.5%. That's where we come in.
Mhm.
Can they afford it? Do they have the funds? What does their DTI look like? Is it going to screw up their cash to close? So we have to be in excellent communication around the buyer broker agreement. And we've seen quite a few times already where that's happened. So you need to be getting those BBAs.
Yes.
It's not
And
just a
when-
document.
Let's talk about when you should be getting those.
So we're getting it when we go under contract, because I'm not going to ask everybody for their BBA when they're pre-approved. That's just too much. I mean, if that's what your company is telling you to do, then don't listen to me.
Yes.
But we run our own thing, and we're only getting the BBAs when somebody goes under contract.
So this was my thought. And like I said, I'm not personally originating, so I'm not dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. And this is why I'm asking the experts. As expert as you can be when it's only been in place for like a little over a month.
I'm trying here. I wouldn't.
But you're dealing with it on an everyday basis. So in my opinion, if it were me, I would be asking for that, asking what kind of agreement they've made, even if I don't have a copy of it or whatever. But I want to make sure that the buyer understands that they're paying money if they are paying money. So
that's why it's tricky.
Yeah.
That's why it's tricky. So we do talk about it. If a realtor sends me a referral, I say to them, did you get a BBA signed?
Good. I
if
like
not,
that.
Do you need me to help you get a BBA signed? During my call with them. Do you want me to explain? We have a bunch of collateral. We have videos. We have all sorts of things that we can send to the client. That way they understand. Because that's partnership, right?
Yes. And I think every loan officer should be training their team to do that. Either the loan officer does it or whoever they have designated to ask those questions at the beginning should be doing that. Because there's a ton of information on the NAR website. They have client, consumer information that's super easy to read. I've gone through it and read it. And I'm sure there's other collateral that you have that you've created.
Yeah, we took all of that because I always try to put myself in the shoes of a first-time home buyer who's never done this before. So every piece of process that we do, because we have a lot of first-time home buyers we're working with, we're going to update our process to match that. Also, I don't care how many homes you bought before, you've never done this.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. You could be like a seasoned investor. And interestingly enough, some of my realtor referral partners who work with investors are having a tougher time getting them to sign BBAs because they do this so much. And they're like, why do I have to do this now? Like they're not happy about it.
And I'm sure they're asking for discounts.
So having that conversation, well, that's a whole other.
Yeah.
I'll let someone else talk about that. Yeah, that's another whole interesting piece. But also know your worth, everyone. Provide value. The other thing too is like if you are a company that drives leads, like if you do direct to consumer. So if somebody comes to you and maybe they don't have an agent, that's a time to, at the end of that call, say, hey, I'm happy to connect you with a realtor. We have a network of great agents. You know, so important to have a good agent in this market. By the way, I just want you to know, hey, have you heard the word NAR lately? And I make a joke about it. And people are like, oh yeah, what is that? It's all over the news, right? And I'm like, okay, here's what it is. And then we send the collateral because again, we want to make sure that we are supporting our partners.
Yes.
Everyone's confused. So the more we can do that, but as far as the documentation goes, we're only doing it under contract.
Okay, great. Yeah. But you are asking the question up front. That way they don't start looking for a home and they don't even know what they're paying yet. Because there are buyers that will sign anything that the agent tells them to sign, even if they don't understand it. I hate that happens. I wish I could control that better so that they wouldn't do that. But as loan originators, you can but you can educate the client up front before they even go looking at homes if you get them first.
Exactly. And that's really, that's an important point. That's another whole call we could have. Because we have now, unfortunately, people that are choosing to go unrepresented. And I'm trying to explain to them, there is no more unrepresented.
Yes.
That's what they don't understand because it's like, unless it's an open house, if they want to go view that property, that listing agent is going to make them sign a BBA for that property. They have to. It's the law now. So to me, it's like, okay, I know you don't want to pay a buyer's agent. You're not necessarily required to do so. You don't have to go under contract on that property if they're not covering the compensation. And that's another thing that I really think is so important. Compensation and concessions are different.
Yes. Very different. And explaining that to the buyer.
No one gets that.
Yeah, they need to understand that because buyer concessions are things that the seller's willing to pay on their behalf going towards their closing costs, not towards their commission. Completely different. Thanks for bringing that up.
Many realtors don't know that. So it's our job. It's really their broker's job. That may or may not be happening. That message may be going over someone's head. I'm not, blaming or placing blame anywhere, but it's our job to tell them like, hey, this is your commission. This is very different.
Yes.
And that's the second document. So the commission between who's going to pay in Florida, which is our biggest market, it's broker to broker. So if someone at Keller is on the sales side, right? Someone at Keller is representing the seller and someone at Compass is representing the buyer. Then there is an agreement between Keller and Compass that Keller is going to pay Compass X amount of money on this deal. And that is something that we need to have because we need to know where that money's coming from.
Exactly.
Title needs it. We need it.
Yes.
Right. So they're really, and again, I haven't heard that there's states that are kind of outliers. We're licensed in a couple states and we're doing deals, I think, in 3 states right now. And it all seems to be the same. So compensation and concessions.
Yes. That's good to bring up. So those are the questions. Think about it. So originators need to be thinking and their teams need to be thinking, okay, which questions should we be asking and when should we be asking those questions? As a mortgage advisor, you know that having a high-performing loan team is critical to building a successful business. But training them can be time-consuming, and it can detract from more important tasks like generating leads and growing your business. But that's where we come in. We created Loan Assistant Mortgage Training Bootcamp, a self-paced online course available immediately to train your team, including newer loan officers, on how to actually do mortgage loans. Our course takes them step by step through the process from taking a complete loan application to creating effective communication with clients, referral partners, and team members. When they complete the class, they will have the training to be an asset to you and your mortgage business. Visit loanteamtraining.com and navigate to the Loan Assistant Mortgage Training Bootcamp tab to review our course details and enroll. With our training, you can confidently delegate and devote your time to growing your business even more. So that was the first point that I wanted to make sure that we make today. And the reason this came up, frankly, Alyson, is because in our bootcamp training, we talk about the contract. It's all pre-recorded. And I need to add something in there about NAR, about maybe what questions they should be asking up front that they didn't used to have to ask. And so that's why this came up to begin with. And I called you and said, what do you think? So I'm glad we're talking about it today because some people think in advance and some people don't think in advance. And when you don't think in advance, I've learned the hard way, you get bit. Something happens. Can you imagine if a buyer went out to buy a home and they didn't realize what they signed and the originator didn't say?
That's what happened with our unrepresented buyers.
Yes.
That's what happened. So we have 2 buyers right now that are pre-approved and looking. They are not using a buyer's agent because they signed something on the listing side when they went to view a property that they did not understand. So now they don't trust anyone. Yeah,
that's so sad. Are you finding that listing agents are just representing both now? Can they do that?
Yeah.
They can, just like
it's not happening. Yeah, it's not happening as much as, well, at least for now, it's not happening as much as I maybe thought it was going to happen. The analogy that I use is it's very hard for someone to be balanced when they're representing an opposite goals and an opposite side. So it's almost like if you were going to get a divorce and you had to go to court, Would you want the same attorney? Like, this is the analogy I'm using. Would you want your husband or wife or partner's attorney to represent you? They're trying to get as much money in what they want. You're trying to get as much money in what you want. Like, those are competing ideas and ideals. And I think there's agents, we have some listing agents out there that I know can do it. It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do that because the sellers wants the most amount of money for their property. They want to fix the least amount of things. And the buyer wants to get the best deal.
Right. Yes.
So as the mortgage side, I mean, we're the quarterbacks. Can we agree? Like, we quarterback everything.
Yes.
So this is just another playbook for the quarterback to have to manage, because once it comes down to, oh, hey, I'm not paying that commission, or I'm not paying what you've agreed upon, then it's our job to jump in. If we don't know what's been agreed upon, if we sound like we don't know what's happening, if we don't have the document, if we haven't talked to the realtor, we look bad and we look incompetent, and we don't want to do that.
And
we want to be experts and educators.
Exactly. When you are an expert and an educator and you ask the right questions and you portray that, like you tell the client, this is why I'm asking the question, because I want to avoid any problems down the road. That totally sets you and your team apart, because then they know she is looking out for me or he is looking out for me. I really appreciate that.
That's the best point, I think, of this whole talk, is that we didn't create this rule. I'm sure we all have thoughts about it that I will keep to myself. But at the end of the day, it's our job to continue to do what we do, which is to provide value, get people in a home, support them through this process. This is not an easy process. This is making it more complicated, clearly, right? And it's our job to continue to do what we're doing. It is hard, though, for the LOs out there. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say this is easy. Like, it has been difficult. It's harder to do our jobs now in many ways, but we've chosen to be here, and we have told people and we've promised through our mission statements and through our reputations that this is what we're going to do. And so we have to do it.
For sure. And you know what? We can expect change. That's one thing that we know is going to happen in life, is change. And we can buck it, we can fight it, or we can go along and go with the flow and just make the best of it and find ways to serve our clients. That's the thing. So how do you help your referral partners then navigate through this?
So just helping educate them. I've had a lot of conversations. We've shot a lot of content. Like I said, we've created a lot of online content and things that they can use and things that they can repurpose and brand to help explain to people what this is. And in layman's terms, why am I signing this? What does this mean? What is this going to cost me? I don't understand. So that is our biggest number one thing that we did. And we're still doing that. But really, it's the conversations that we're having with our shared clients, conversations that we're having with our agents about other things that we're seeing with other deals that we're doing, and just talking to people about it. Yeah, because we have to talk about it to get through it. Yeah.
Do you find that referral partners are calling and you're lending an ear because they're frustrated? Just like always, right? I mean, that happens. That's part of being a partner to somebody. A referral partner is being there for them when they need you.
Yeah. And having that emotional connection, saying, you know what, I understand that this is annoying. I'm annoyed too, but let's work this out. Let's see how we can figure this out.
Yes. And the more conversations like that you have, the easier it's going to be for them to navigate and for you to navigate, and asking the right questions, thinking about things in advance that they need to be asking their clients, and making sure that they're explaining things properly and that you're together on that everything is, the flow works really well because you're telling the clients pretty much the same thing that they're telling the clients.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like, if you get a referral or if you give a referral, making sure that you get the information about what any issues might be, because there are issues around this. Like, maybe somebody doesn't really want to sign, or they're asking a lot of questions they don't understand. Can you please reiterate this? Or this is something you need to highlight in your conversation with them. I can't say this loud enough. The people you choose to work with now are going to make or break your numbers.
For sure.
Because what we're seeing, and I knew we would get here, Irene, because we always get to the crux. What we're seeing is a lot of people that don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Both on our side and on the realtor side. And it's time to find your people so that you can get folks into homes.
Yes.
That's it. I mean, it sounds very simple. It's not, but that's it.
Yes. Know who your people are. Align with the right people is what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a big one. So, well, thank you for being here today. I am just so appreciative of you and our friendship, and I just love you to death. And you offer so much good stuff when we come on the podcast together, and I just really appreciate you. And you're always trying to help people. That's what I love about you. That's where my heart is in helping people. And so you know that about me, and we just want to help people. That's why I do the podcast, is because I want to help loan officers and other people that listen to it as well. Because this isn't just today was about loan officer stuff, and it could be for agents as well. But you can take anything in the stuff that we discuss on a weekly basis, and you can apply it to your own business, whatever that is. But we're specifically here for loan officers because that's what we do, right? That's what we know. Thank you for being on today. And did I leave anything out that you think might?
No, I just wanted to say, I wanted to give you a shout out too, because, you know, what this really comes down to is being a helper. And I think maybe that didn't hit me until you used that word. Like, we're here to help. And I want to thank you for being my mentor in providing value and being helpful. And, you know, ultimately you have to have my relationship with you. Like, I wish everyone that listens to this podcast can find a relationship like we have, because again, like, you got to find your tribe. When change is here, that's how you're going to get through it. And we laugh through it. We cried through it. We get frustrated through it. And having your people, like even your realtor partners, like, this is a time to go deeper with them.
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yes.
I'm not okay. Can we talk about this?
For sure.
Nothing wrong. Be vulnerable. Tell people how you feel.
Yes. That's one of the things that sets you apart, again, as a loan officer, as a branch manager, whatever you are, as a mortgage advisor. It sets you apart when you're there for your referral partners and you're honest about it.
Yep.
And I'm here for you.
Yep.
Whatever you need.
Use it. Use this change to go deeper.
Yes.
Deeper in your education, deeper in your advisement. I love the mortgage advisor. That's the term we're using now. Deeper in your relationships with your clients, deeper in your relationships with your partners. This is it.
This is it.
We
can either be frustrated and cry about it and say, oh man, another change, or we can have a positive attitude, change our self-talk and say, this is a great opportunity for me to forge relationships, to get even stronger in the relationships that I have. And for many, that's exactly what's happening. For you, that's what's happening. From our conversations, I know that you're getting stronger in your relationships right now than ever before.
Absolutely.
So I'm proud of you. Keep it up.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here, and we will have you on another one and we'll talk about a different subject. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you, Irene.
Thanks for being on the podcast today. I hope it was valuable to you. And if it was, would you do me a favor and review us and follow us on the podcast? That would be so great. I would really appreciate that. So enjoy your day.